All right, guys, we are done with Raw Nationals. Ben Rice, how do you feel?
Ready for the next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the next one for you?
The next Raw Nationals is in Chicago next year. I'm ready for that.
No, I mean, are you going to do another meet in between?
That's a very good question. And the man on the screen right there can decide if that's going to happen or not.
What do you think, Coach?
We've yet to discuss that, but we'll figure it out. We'll probably at least do something in between. But um, obviously, we want to set up to do well for next year's a little bit better than how this year went,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
or a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, and I still can't really complain about how, considering how I executed. I think I landed pretty well among a group of really strong guys. So,
Yeah, I mean, they're very strong. The whole top six-ish, right? Something like that. I mean, you, Michael Davis, Blevins and Burks, really the main people, but they're all crazy strong, man. You guys are separated from the rest of them.
I,
Like
I
you,
have I have zero shame in the place that I took compared to those people. I just am definitely excited to fix a couple of things and give them a little better showing next time. So
I mean, if we want to get right into that one, I think we probably could have been more conservative on the squat numbers, but we knew what kind of squat range we needed to be in order to be competitive with those top two guys, with Garrett and Eli. So that's kind of the range we were shooting for on the second, and based on the first, it didn't seem unreasonable, even if it would have meant a hard third attempt or something like that. So that's we were trying to be in that conversation when it came down to deadlifts, to pull for the win,
yeah,
and it ended up that it wasn't there on that day, and it happens.
it's one of those things too that hindsight's you can shoulda coulda woulda everything to death. I absolutely believe that I'm still capable of that number,
Yeah, for
even
sure.
even on the day, just given us a slightly different execution and set of circumstances. It's just that doesn't matter unless you prove it. So
We wouldn't have gave it to you if we didn't think it was a reasonable
right,
attempt.
right,
Even if it meant taking a small jump or even scratching the third, if it ended up being a grinder like it looked like. I think we needed something in that range as a minimum in order to be able to try to reach for them for that 1 and 2 spot.
yeah. And then I didn't help with Eric at all when it came to attempt selection when my bench my bench
That was
attempts looked inverted. If you watched him backwards and didn't see what weight was on the bar, you would assume that my third attempt was my opener, and my opener was like a really well chosen grindy third attempt.
I've never seen something like that, but
It's
I mean,
hashtag butt stuff, man. Don't let your glutes
ul-
cramp mid lift.
ultimately though, with your bench, we're not losing much anyways. We missed out on maybe 2.5 to 5 kilos
Yeah,
from what we were planning on ending up at, but that's not a huge loss in the long run.
yeah.
yeah.
But it was kind of funny because they do look
I
exactly
know.
the opposite of what they should be,
Oh
with
man.
your third being much faster than your first.
And my second looking like an appropriate second. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's all good.
Okay, so what were your thoughts about how it was ran compared to what people on social media probably would say, or a lot of people not wanting to do it because it was in Spokane? What do you think about just the whole idea of it being in Spokane and where how they had it?
I think the venue was excellent. I think they did a really nice job with signage so that everyone knew where they needed to go, and it looked professional. They obviously put a lot of money into the banners and signs around the hotel to make it look like a legitimate national competition. I guess my only complaints would be that they needed more seating in the venue, especially for the prime time. It was just stacked in there, and you, half the time you could barely see what was going on if you're trying to be a spectator. So I think some kind of venue with a stadium seating would be really nice. Especially when we get to those kind of sessions where you have hundreds of people in there and everyone's kind of standing up and trying to see what's going on. A stadium style seating would be a lot better for that. And then my only other complaint would be the Sunday, where they had 4 flights in the afternoon that kind of bled into that prime time session. That was really difficult for both the lifters and coaches because you had people that were off schedule trying to warm up for other lifts that other flights were already done with, and then the primetime groups were trying to warm up while these other guys were trying to warm up for deadlift, and it was just pure chaos down there in the warm up room for all that. So that part was a little bit hectic to finish out with so many big guys finishing out the day. But I think the rest of it ran extremely smooth. Everything seemed to be on time. All the spotter groups did great, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I think for the most part, given the choices made, I think it was run extremely well. I think my biggest criticisms would be the choosing the 4 days instead of 5. I understand that 4 days are a little bit easier to travel, but I think it really hurt a few situations. For like, first and foremost, the fact that there were the stream was being split with
Right.
having two platforms. I had a bunch of people ask me if I bombed out on squat because they missed my opener. And it's like, I didn't expect that to be a situation. And I know that I'm not the only one that would have happened to, but the fact also that because it was condensed into 4 days, you had a few of those bigger flights running super fast, and the spotters and loaders were doing their job to go really quickly. But I mean, if you want to see the strongest people lifting their strongest weights, it helps to have a little bit of extra time in between. Having 6-second rest periods with true max attempts it didn't, it affected a lot of people, especially on that Sunday. You saw Ray underperform on his squat. You saw Garrett miss a 705. You saw me miss a weight that I should have. You saw a lot of third attempt squats that looked a little bit more struggle bussy, or people had to be overly conservative. Deadlift attempt for the national championship to win, Gino comes over and raises his hand, and the spotter and loaders are pushing him off the platform. Like, what are you doing? We have to get the next part. Like, I'm sorry, he just won nationals. We paid $150 to be here, and he just won. Let him take us. He pulled with 20 seconds left on the clock. Let him take a second to. He was walking off the platform, and Gino stopped him to like who. What do we do this for? Give him a minute, man. Give him a minute. I'm sure you're not going to have a single 120 who's like, dang it, they're not going fast enough because they raised that guy's hand when he won the competition. Blah, blah, blah. That to me was efficiency at the expense of the lifter. And I don't think that should ever be the case. And I mean, that's coming from someone who I really like the meet directors. I really enjoy them as people, and I think that they did an awesome job. It's just you got to prioritize the lifting, man.
Yeah, that part was a little bit disappointing, especially on the last day where you have 5 weight classes, and at least 3 of those were very competitive down to the wire type finishes. With 84s were really exciting, a lot of great lifting there. 105s and 120s were both very close. And even 120 plus, the second place race was close. I know Jason pulled for second place to beat Pena. I mean, there was a lot of really good lifting going on, but I think on the stream you kind of lose some of that, and you lose some of the tension and the drama, and especially when you're switching back and forth with cameras and the live stream commentators, they do their best, but it's hard to keep track of that many weight classes going at the same time. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of lose a little bit of the luster with that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, as someone who wasn't in prime time, I went back to look at some of like my stuff, and yeah, the split screen is, I mean, I guess it's okay if you're going to have split screens for 4 platforms, the 2 and 2 where they had 2 streams up at once, that works. But, you do miss so much of it. And then for the fact that they're doing that on prime time too, I was very, as someone who wasn't even in prime time, right? Like I was very still disappointed. It's like, that's the whole point of prime time. It's for sole focus to be on the lifter, the specific lifter, and their like battle, versus it being like, okay, there's this 2 thing going on at the same time. We don't know what we're really looking at. And then that still defeats the purpose with, paying as much as they do for the broadcasting, for the announcers and everything else. Then what? They're trying to split their attention. And yeah, I was pretty disappointed to see how they did that this year. I know last year, obviously, and the year before that, it seemed like primetime was a much bigger deal than it was at this meet.
And there were even a few things with, I'm super biased because live streaming is what I do now, like almost full time as a living. Mm-hmm. And just having people's weight classes up, like during the day session, like not even knowing, you'd have a bunch of lifters going and you don't know what class they're in. Like that would be a simple little fix on an overlay that, Granted, it would be an absolute task to implement if it's not set up, but a little bit of forethought. Because I remember I was trying to stay away from the venue on a few of the days to kind of rest, and there were times where watching the live stream just was not enough. It was, given the fact that everyone came to this place, it's like there was a little bit lost, and for the daytime people, and then even for the prime time. I think the 83s and like the 93s, those ones, because they had 10 lifters and they didn't have the split platform. I think those ran a lot better on the live stream, but then there were maybe some issues with the commentary where like lifts were not actually, no lifting analysis was being done. It was really hard to follow the 93 especially.
Yeah. So, okay, what about the matchups? We can start with so in the 47s, Heather won, no surprise there. We kind of just knew that was going to be the case. I don't think she did as well as she would have wanted to. Like she was significantly off her best. But when, it's a one-on-one, you versus yourself for the championship, it kind of doesn't matter too much. The 52s, right? That was the one with Tina and Marissa. What happened with that, Eric, till the end?
Yeah, it was pretty close all the way through. I think Marissa hit a record bench and built a little bit of a lead that way. But going into deadlifts, I think she only hit one deadlift, and that kind of left the door open. But Tina didn't have quite what she would have needed in order to pass her, just because of how the squat and bench went down. I think Tina would have needed 187.5 in order to pass her and be ahead on total at the end. But Tina decided that she wanted to just try to pull 400, which is 182.5. And she didn't have that because her second was a grinder already at 177. So they decided just to go up 5 and try to get that milestone number instead of trying to pull 187 for the win. I tried to talk them out of it, just try to take a shot at it. But I understand that, especially with the second being as tough as it was. So even the conservative jump on the second or on the third to try to get that 182.5 wasn't there. So obviously the number that she would have needed to win wasn't there either. So it makes sense. But I do think another year of progress for Tina will probably put her in where she needs to be in order to switch spots there.
And if she doesn't try to handle lifters the day of, I talked to her a little bit afterwards, and she made a couple of weight cutting decisions that were questionable.
Yeah, I mean, she was sitting under, from what I heard from her, like she was sitting a kilo under while she was handling.
Yeah,
obviously at that point, it's like you for sure are gonna make weight. Like it's not a question of that. It's more of like, okay, you want to handle these lifters and you want it to affect, the meet. And she said it herself. Like it's definitely gonna affect her. Like, yeah. But she wanted to do it, so it is what it is. So the 57s, right? And the 57s was basically Chrissy, Eric's 57, and help me out.
Scanlon, Robin Davis, and Melissa Barber.
Correct.
So Scanlon came in very strong. We didn't know what kind of shape she would be in because she had kind of been up and down this year at her 57 meets. Mm-hmm. But she came in as strong as we could have expected, and really nobody had a chance to hang with her. She was, I think 20 or 30 kilos ahead of most of the people. So, yeah, she was out of reach, but there's also some really strong lifting by Robin Davis, and Melissa Barber came in incredibly strong on deadlift. I think she pulled 207.5 on her second attempt deadlift, which was already a 14 kilo American record on her second attempt. And then she tried 207,
212.5.
Or 212, yeah. She went from 207.5 to 212.5, which I think was to go open placing to second. And that wasn't quite there, but I mean that's just crazy, that kind of deadlift at that weight class.
Right.
Christina had a really good day on squat and bench. She had I think a 10 kilo PR on squat and 5 on bench, and just didn't have it on deadlift. We were trying to pull for second with 195 on her last pull, and she gave it a good fight, got about halfway up, but it just wasn't there on the day.
Yeah, and the way it finished was Scanlon, Robin Davis, and then Melissa Barber, and then Chrissy. And the top three were over 5:15 Wilks, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So that's how it ended. So Chrissy didn't have too great of a meet, but she's like really, really pumped for the Arnold and redeeming herself there.
Yeah, we'll get that deadlift figured out, and she'll be able to put up a big total there.
Mm-hmm. And the 63s. So the 63s, Samantha Calhoun won, dethroned Jennifer Thompson, and man, that last deadlift was pretty damn easy. Like from what I've seen with that Worlds pull where she pulled 490 and she pulled 497 for this one, and this one was way easier. Like there was at least another 5 kilos.
Which was kind of crazy too, because you saw Jen Thompson, like I think 207.5 for her third was like, whoa, Jen, we know who you are. We know you're crazy. Where'd that come from?
She opened with 170 and it did not look great. And then she jumped 25 kilos and that one was better. Yeah. And then 207 and she got it. That was crazy.
But even her 195 didn't look like she had 12 and a half more on it. I mean, it looked rough.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And that's kind of how she is, where she almost gets better as she goes with deadlift. But we didn't expect her to have that 207.5. So that was a huge lift. That was awesome.
It was pretty high.
And I was talking with Jen Milliken's coaches before deadlifts, and they were trying to figure out and I said, probably around 235 at most. And I think that's probably true based on how that 225.5 moved. I mean, she had some left there, and then that's crazy to think about. But Sam was definitely as strong as she needed to be on the day. She put up a big squat, 170, I think it was. Bench was in good shape, and deadlift obviously had a little bit of room there if needed. So everyone did what they could. Milliken put up a great fight. I don't think people were expecting her to be that strong already at 63.
I was not.
She hit a record squat, huge PR for her on bench, and then came really close to pulling what she would have needed to tie the other two on total. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a fight for years to come with those three.
Yeah, I mean, she squatted 408, and like that was pretty smooth. Her eccentric is kind of fast, so it's kind of hard to tell really what she has left, but it would look good. And she ended with 192 on deadlift and missed that 202. But still, like, she was over 530 Wilks. All three of them were, 544 Wilks, 542, 530. Crazy. And so the dark horse that I was hoping for, Jasmine, she did well in her first big meet, her real big meet on prime time stage, and being as competitive as she was going into it, she did really well. I mean, she did like over 500 Wilks as a junior, and she won the junior national championship. Just was not there with even Milliken, which I definitely did not think they were going to come in that strong. But it's crazy to see how peaked and perfect all three of them went. Jennifer Thompson did really well despite her not getting 155 kilos on squat. But I think I saw once that was the case where Jennifer Thompson's squat was not even 155. 150 was close, but Sam, pulled 20 or squatted 20 kilos more, which was a way more than enough to make it okay, now it's a fight. And then really Sam is the one that gets to decide at the end if I want to pull to win or not. And it was obviously there and more. So that's how that ended.
Well, and to Jasmine's credit too, there's if you look at kind of the groupings of where those totals are, the top three are kind of within 10 kilos of each other. She's 20 kilos under that, but then she's still 20 kilos above the next group of 4 or 5 lifters. So
yeah, 30. Well, she's 37 kilos above. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. The grouping is really tight in the top three, and then it's a little bit of a drop, but then she's kind of standing there by herself before an even bigger drop to the rest of the field. So she's going to keep getting better too. I think she'll be in that conversation with those three next year.
Mm-hmm.
Just like watching her lift. We were watching that from the hotel, and she was rooting for her. So
yeah, I mean, this is her second meet at 63. So Yeah, I think she'll do really well.
She had some frustrating stuff with bench too. I think she could have benched a lot more than she did, but she was getting some holds and re-racks and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that was the 63s. The 72s, with who I predicted, right? I predicted Kristen Dunsmore to win. And she did with that last deadlift, that 210 pull. So that was huge. And then Madeline Scott was second. I'm sorry, Chloe was second, and then Madeline was third.
Yeah, you had talked about before that Kristen had definitely made some deadlift progress and was going to be in good shape there, but you never really know until meet day if that's actually going to come through.
Mm-hmm. And she said she like tweaked a glute or something. It was some like strain, maybe not a strain, but like her deadlift was not as strong as what she was thinking it was going to be. But still, 210, like that's huge.
Yeah, and Kristen was like seemingly super relaxed in warm-ups. I was helping her and Madeline with warm-ups, and the other 72s were very focused, and Kristen was kind of like dancing around down there and seemingly pretty relaxed given the circumstances. So maybe that helps her.
Her third squat was missed on depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
So she still had 7.5 kilos there with another inch of depth. So
yeah. So that was the 72s. Essentially, kind of went how I thought. Chloe did pretty well. I didn't know where she would really be at. And then Madeline got the squat record. So that was very cool to see.
And she had a pretty big pull to get bronze overall too.
Yeah, she pulled 210 as well. Yeah. Her bench was just a little off. That's why it wasn't as close with Kristen. Yeah, and the 84s, right? This was the most anticipated matchup probably, right? One of them.
Yeah, on the women's side, definitely 63s and 84s were pretty hyped up.
So we had Amanda and Daniela, and wow, this was where I thought this was kind of would be how it played out. Daniela benched 300, so that kind of was like, okay, that was the nail in the coffin, almost the nail in the coffin, essentially. I mean, Amanda still had the opportunity to pull, what she had to. I just don't think it was obviously there. But Amanda came in really strong and squatted 238, which is huge. Like, this is like what the 83s were squatting in like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In the men's side. Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately Amanda would have needed somewhere around 255 for her last pull to pass Daniela. Mm-hmm. And it looked like her last deadlift was pretty close to her limit. So I think they made a good call there, just trying to get the record and not trying to overshoot for first.
Yeah. So Amanda had a 529 Wilks and Daniela with 537. All these, like 500 Wilks right now is like nothing. Like everybody has that.
I hope they both get to go to Worlds. I'm not sure how that's going to shake up. We might end up having either a couple 63s or a couple 84s, but they're both deserving of a national team spot.
Yeah, because the way it works is, so Daniela wins the Open and Juniors. She takes the Open spot, and since she's taking the Open spot, she's ineligible, obviously, for the Junior spot, which means it'll go to the next alternate, not necessarily Amanda.
Right.
So Amanda doesn't necessarily get the Junior spot, even though she essentially is the highest Junior and ranked spot. It'll go to the next alternate, which could be her, but it could also not be. So,
I would imagine she's ranked pretty high in alternates based on what she told me in looks. So
definitely ranked the highest, but the way it works is it's not necessarily going to her first.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's why I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Right? Isn't it on the, what is it, Carpino score?
The Carpino score.
So it's their total compared to the winning totals of the last 3 Worlds, and so.
And they both out-totaled what the winning totals have been.
She's probably at least in the top of those.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
it.
So she'll probably be the Junior spot.
Hopefully.
And if someone declines in the Open, she probably will be a second Open first.
True.
So, yeah, I mean, Amanda posted that 550 squat that she did, like in prep. She sent me that, and I didn't say anything. Like, I wasn't going to tell anybody like that, but it was huge. Like, the squat 550 at that weight class, man, like she's gonna be crazy strong as long as she just keeps going with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
84s. This is Yo Girl, Ben Rice.
84 plus.
Yeah, 84 plus. My bad.
It's Queen Bonica.
Mm-hmm.
Bow down to the bubbles. She's untouchable in everything she does. Like, I just don't even ask how she does anymore. She just comes down and I just assume she's winning by all of it.
Which I think kind of it's unfortunate for her when, you know, there's not really someone that's that close to pushing her. She kind of doesn't have to be like, you know, 120% every single time. Like she can win and win. What's up?
More of a push for her. She's got open worlds coming up, so she was like, I won't say she sandbagged it a little bit, but me saying that I'm not saying it is maybe me saying that she's going to that open worlds, and that I think that might even be her main focus right now. So, but she's crazy strong.
She still did well too. I think she tied her best ever deadlift. She pulled 250.
Mm-hmm.
So
she was, when I say like she thought about trying to beat it. She thought about trying to beat the record, and she's like, I'll save it for next time because she just can.
Yeah, that's not far away either. I think they're like 3 weeks out from open worlds.
Yeah, so she's saving a little something in the tank for that. Jumped right back into training. She already posted training again back with her inner equipment. So,
okay, so let's go to the 59s. This was the one that I actually picked Andres to win, and he just got beat out by Cole Metz. If I am correct, I think Cole pulled something pretty huge.
247.5. You beat him on the last pull, it looks like, by 2.5 kilos.
And so I'm sorry, Cole. You did great. Good job on the W. Yeah, I think Andres just didn't come in quite as, you know, perfect as he would have wanted. But still a really good meet. I think like PR is still on literally almost everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andres was 9 for 9, and you know, Cole was just strong enough to pull what he needed to win. But they were similar. They benched the same. Andres squatted 5 kilos more, and Cole pulled 7.5 kilos more. So that was the only difference there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Both 5'11" Wilks, and Andres still should be going to Junior Worlds and defending his Junior World Championship. So that's good for him. And
he's still really young.
Yeah,
born in 90. Both of them were born in 99.
Yeah. So that should be. Oh well, actually, wait. Did Cole register as a junior too? Because it could be the same situation as Amanda and Daniela. Let's see.
Teen, 18, 19.
They're both teens.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Wait. So no, he'll be an IPF junior though, not a sub junior.
Right.
So he'll be
They both registered as teen though.
Yeah, because that's all they could register for.
Yeah. They'll both be IPF juniors next year. Cole will get the spot and for the open, and then Andres would still be ranked 2 in the juniors.
Yeah.
So he will not automatically be on the junior team either.
Confusing times.
I guess we'll see how they play out with the Carpino scores.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he probably beat, because he won Junior Worlds, right? Last year?
Yeah, Andres did, yeah.
Yeah,
it's not the decider though.
What I'm saying is it's a good chance that if this total was exceeding that, then his Carpino would be high enough, assuming.
Right. So, okay, that's that. So this is another situation, right? The 66s. No. Jonathan Garcia is a lot older. So Charles is a junior too, but he won the Open. And
I think Charles is aging out of juniors though.
No, he's 95.
Yeah, but next year he won't be a IPF junior.
And Worlds is next year, right? So the calendar year, not.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. So anyways, he was the open winner. Charles still did really well, 584 pull, 363 bench, and 551 squat. I think his squat was just a little off. I was back there actually with my 74 for prime time that night, and warm-ups were going crazy fast. And I think that was the theme, like literally all meet, like the whole week. Some of these flights where you had 7-8 lifters in the flight beforehand, you look at it initially and it's like it's going, and then all of a sudden they're on second attempts, almost on their thirds, and like you've got to be making sure everything's running on time.
I mean, you can see that reflected too. I think it affects the squats more than it affects anything else. Just
Right.
look at the completed lifts. Charles and Jonathan are the only two, I think, probably in that entire and then Ricky Ortiz down in seventh are the only ones to register 2 completed squats. Like they're without missing a second. There's just so many missed seconds on those, and then a bunch of missed thirds. I think.
I heard Charles had to work pretty hard to make weight too, and I think that took it out of him for squat. And then once he got past squat and was a little more rehydrated, then he kind of found his groove and hit some good numbers on bench and deadlift.
Yeah, I mean, just if you look at the lifting cast, though, just a lot of red for the squats for everybody. I think that fast time is so fast.
With Charles though, like he made weight fine, and after he got some Epsom salt or whatever, he made weight. It was good, but afterwards he went to go take a nap or something, and he came back and like they were already almost starting, so he had like no time to warm up, and basically went out there with a K-Mac warm up of 405 and then go out there.
Yeah.
And then was good. He got his opener, got his second, and that was more than enough to win. So that was the 66s. The 74s. This was pretty interesting. It kind of went out just like how it normally is, where Atwood is clearly ahead. Blake has to pull something huge to try to win, and try to pull 338 and just was not close to being there.
Yeah, but at least this time he was secure enough to not like drop multiple places by going for the yellow attempt. He had his second place pretty much secured.
Yeah, Michael was the third spot and was a little just too far out to be able to catch him, even if we jumped something crazy for a third attempt deadlift. It just wasn't there after missing, after missing a squat, 265 squat, and then not benching where I thought he would. He got a very interesting call on, his opener where they held him out for 15, 20 seconds, had to re-rack it, put it back, then, try to get it again with no time left and smashed it. And it was easy. Just when you have those long benches or, some issues on squat or something where you're having to sit there and hold that weight static, it just drains you. It digs into it, and, you only have, another 8-9 minutes to recover for your next one. And a lot of times it just drains you too much. He still benched 187, which is only 5 kilos under Atwood. And Michael definitely will be up there for, the best bench in this weight class. But yeah, Atwood was great. He came in, did kind of what we all expected him to, sandbag super easy third attempts and make him look, they're huge lifts. Like he squatted 6'11", and benched 424 and pulled 672 at 73 or 74 kilos. And that would have been competitive in the 83s, very competitive in the 83s. And that's just kind of how he's been. So
pretty sure this is like his 5th straight, maybe 5th or 6th competition where he's totaled 10 times body weight. I don't think people realize how wild that is. 10 times body weight and to do it that many times.
He would have placed second in 83s while making weight at 74, which is wild.
Right.
And another thing too, Atwood and LeHue and LaPointe all pulled 305 or more, which is just a massive deadlift for that weight class. And LaPointe pulled his 305 to move up into 4th, which was pretty exciting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in this weight class, top 6 were all 500 plus Wilks. Most of these are juniors still, and they're just so young. And just with more time, this class is going to be crazy. And, someone like Lapointe, where he has kind of a struggling, squat or bench, and it's coming together, and it's like all he has to do is add, 10, 12 and a half kilos to be way competitive with Michael on total,
Yeah.
And that's it. Like when you're that good of a deadlifter, like all you have to do is get your other ones kind of close to everybody else, and then you're good. Like it's right there, So it's cool to see how strong the 74s are, and that weight class alone, like Atwood 558 Wilks, LeHue 539 Wilks, Michael C 517 Wilks, Lapointe 504. It's just crazy. So I was happy and excited to see my friends doing well in the 74s. But yeah, I think that covers that.
Yep.
83s. Who wants to take this one?
Were you guys there? I was watching the whole thing pretty intently from the live stream.
Yeah,
I was there.
I'm really glad Sean's okay. Just first and foremost, he's not dead, and I think he's going to the hospital to confirm, because he still is slurring some words and everything. But for anybody who doesn't know or wasn't watching, Sean overshot his recomposition rehydration protocol and took in about 15 grams of sodium, and performance up until he was passing out on his third bench press and his last two deadlifts. But Russ did what he needed to do. He hit the squats that he needed to stay out ahead. I think he might have gotten a little bit he left the door open when he missed his third squat. I think that was pretty shocking to a lot of people, because his second looked pretty strong and jumped only 7 kilos, and it didn't look very close compared to how his previous ones had looked. And then but was able to stay in the pocket, as Joey would say, and was consistent with the rest of his lifts, and kind of put the nail in the coffin with his third deadlift, looking really strong. So
it was actually still set up perfectly for Sean, even despite bench not going as well as he might have hoped.
Yeah.
I mean, he was within 11 kilos on squat and gained 2.5 on bench. So ultimately, since neither of them are pulling records, Sean, going into deadlifts, knew that he needed to basically just pull 10 more kilos than Russell would. And we all thought he was capable of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of setting himself up for that with his second attempt number that he lost balance on. His third attempt was assuming a Russell miss, because Russell pulled 300 on his second. So Sean jumped to 310, tried to secure the first placing, and had some downward motion on it. So it didn't work out, but I mean, I think Sean was still strong enough to win on that day. Just didn't pull it together on deadlifts like we thought he might.
Yeah, I mean, with Sean, we were in the preview that we did, I think me and you, Eric, we were like, hey, if Sean's down 20 kilos going in, 20 kilos on squat, he can make up, another 10 on bench, and then have only a 10 kilo difference on deadlift, and that would be right there. Like, all you have to do is pull 10 more. I think Sean himself, was like, yeah, I'm good up to 320 as far as strength goes. That's kind of where I thought too. And I was like, look, like as long as you keep it somewhat close, you don't go for something crazy on squat, you just take like 290, you're going to be perfect. And just with his bench not being 100% there, on normal days or good days in training, Sean can hit 200 kilos easy, on bench, just the commands, all that kind of stuff. But that would have been enough. That would have been another 10 kilos on bench difference to make that up. And he would have been like right there. All he had to do is pull, a little bit more than Russell and be there. So it sucks. And I've talked to Sean about like the balance stuff and why he loses balance. And I think he's going to be much better now. It sucks to see, because Sean works hard, and like, it's one of those things where it's just one little issue at the meet and it's over. As someone, if you're staying very close, like he hired Alberto Nunez to keep his body weight like right there, at that point, there's no need to hyperhydrate or try to, sodium load like crazy. You're already right there. Like, you're not trying to load up and get some magic, rehydration, effect that you're going to perform that much better. Like it's just going to maybe hurt you, or where you like have too much sodium and it's hard on your bowels and you're in the bathroom the whole time. Stuff like that can make a big difference. And for him to make a mistake like that, it's like, come on, man, like you got to know, and I say that with love. Like it sucks that he had that spot. So yeah.
Well, I think he knows that too. And also I want to make sure we don't take away from Russell. Like Russell, he on the day he did what he needed to do. He stuck to his plan and, executed it. So like, it's, again, I say that because I have every temptation with myself to shoulda, coulda, woulda everything. But it's like,
yeah,
given the circumstances, like there was the door left open, but Russell, like, he followed through. He did his thing. So
let's also talk about like Marcus and Rob, because Marcus was right there. Like had he have not have made, a huge jump on his squat and only got his opener squat, say another 10 kilos or 12, and he could have been right there. Like his third attempt deadlift was super easy with 310.
Yeah.
And if he would have just made, 2 squats, even getting 280 or 282 and a half, like, set up 270, 280, 282 and a half or something crazy, like just getting that would be enough. He would have been right there to beat Sean, and
do you know why he took such a big jump? Was it kind of the same thing that
I think that's what he's done before. Like he's hit 285 pretty easy before at the Arnold. And I think they were just planning for him to have much more than what he did. And the 15 kilos is a big jump. Like I've taken that recently for squats, and I'm around the same range. I'm a little bit above with the top end strength. 15 kilos is a big jump unless you're taking like 700 pounds on a squat. Like it can shock you a little bit. And if you miss something like that where you take a huge jump, you're in a deep shit because you took so much of a jump. And now, you're going to go back so far. Like 270 was nothing for him, but it is such a big jump that you're going to lose a lot of ground if you miss. And he did. He missed it and then just scratched his third.
I think he had a little bit of a quad strain too, because they were working on him in the warm-up room after. And I think that's what Ryan had said after that it seemed like a reasonable jump, but something was up with his quad or something like that. So they scratched his third. But yeah, he looked like he was strong enough to pull, 320 or something like that. And if they had took a more conservative squat, or if, just any squat, he probably could have put on what he needed to try to pull for second.
Yeah. And I think with Rob, right, he just didn't squat quite what they expected him to. And so only getting 282 when that's your bread and butter wasn't enough to keep him close. And I think he didn't bench quite as much. And I think how do you miss that last deadlift? He missed 656. Do you know?
I don't remember his last pull, but I talked to Ben a little bit, who was helping him, and they were a little bit concerned with how his training had looked coming into the meet, so they weren't exactly sure where he was going to end up. So I think some of his attempts were a little bit sandbagged compared to where they had hoped that he would be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he might have been strong enough for a little bit more, but I still don't know if it would have been enough to catch up with where Marcus was in third there.
Right.
Jamar definitely looked strong. He got in a really nice third squat there that was like the perfect number for him.
Mm-hmm.
They jumped too much on his bench press, so he got stuck with his opener there. But I think, again, that's another situation. If they had made a more conservative call on his bench press, he would have had a chance to jump up a few and maybe even end up in third or fourth there.
Yeah, I think with bench, I think me and you have had this conversation. I've had this with several people where you take, if you're not benching over 440-ish, taking 10 kilos on bench is super, super risky. Like that's a big shock, to your body and everything to try to load. And once you miss, that's a huge miss. Like if you don't retake it, then it's over. And he only got 167, which just was way too far behind everybody else. When everybody's benching, 175 plus.
Yeah, I mean those 6th, 7th, and 8th all had the same total, and it came down to body weight too. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Everybody missed their third deadlifts.
Yeah.
It was a really it was an entertaining class to watch.
For sure. Yeah. So
okay. Taking aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's gonna call it there for the 83
14 spots.
Yeah, I mean, some of these where they ended up is just a little off. You know, if you have one bad day and everybody's so close, like you may not finish even remotely where you're projected. You know, like I think Vernon had a little bit of off day on his pull, and when you're such a like for him, he's a deadlift specialist for sure. When you miss on something like that, that drops you a ton. So there's situations like that where I feel like happened, or where you didn't come in exactly as you expected. Like he had a great day, 8 for 9, and missed that last deadlift, and that last deadlift's going to cost you, a good 6-7 spots of placing.
Yeah, they were pulling for fourth with that, and he ended up finishing with seventh after the miss.
Yeah. Okay, so 3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were talking about. I was messaging Joe during that to try to figure out what to attempt for his third, since he was pulling last. So it was either to try, I think, 3:42.5 or whatever number it would need to be in order to pass Marcus for third, or take a 7.5 kilo jump and then try to get into fourth. And that seemed more reasonable because the second didn't look great.
Right.
So, I mean, there was really no other option there, but just wasn't quite there.
Yeah. So, okay, that's the 83s. The 93s. Very interesting. Very interesting.
It was awesome. That was a fun one.
So this is, okay, let's just say this real quick, before we talk about any of it. If we look at all the way till 10th place, a 790 total, that was a 500 Wilks. So if you
11th got 500 bucks too.
11th was all the way down to 507 Wilks, and that was 785. So like me being in the 93s, like I just want to say it, like I feel like the 93s are the most competitive, and we're just like missing one spot. Like you could drop like crazy. Like I finished 9th with an 800 kilo total. Had I made my last pull, I would have been 5th. That's huge. That's a huge difference,
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. The good guy wins, the hero, the storybook ending, right? Where Wilson bombs out at his 2 out of the last 3 meets he's done. Feels miserable about it, hates everything, so sad. And then he's the hero at the end of the day and has the storybook ending where he goes to Worlds in Sweden. Like, you've got to be happy for him. You've got to be so happy for him. Like, anybody, no matter what, you don't know him, he's a great, nice dude, and he's, like, super respectful, super humble, just does what he can and, like, shows up and just lifts. And, he won. He won the whole thing. Even when, I think Ashton, still would have been ineligible for a spot. It feels great, if you can go head-to-head with him and win. That's crazy. So hats off to David Wilson. Congrats, man. I'm happy for you.
He made the changes. I remember that last year after Nationals, he lost his balance on all 3 pulls at Nationals last year and bombed when he was in position to potentially win it. And I handled he and I like co-handled lifters the next day, and I like talked to him about it, and he just put so much focus into fixing the things. He had a couple of issues with his depth on squat. Every single one of his squats just looked buried. There was a jury call that overturned the third where they said 2-1, and then the jury was already investigating before the coaching challenge was even submitted. He just put together like a full day. I talked to him the next day and he's like, "Hey, I figured it out, man. Just do all your lifts. Like, just don't miss them." And I was like, "What is the?" And I didn't follow through on that advice completely, but it's the good advice to do. And I think he had even more in the tank on that third pull. And he just prepared. Like he made the changes, he made the adjustments, he took the feedback from those negative experiences and turned it into. I don't know if he would have put up the same kind of total this year if he wouldn't have had those other experiences, because I think that he learned from them and grew from them, and I think they were necessary to bring this together. So
I agree with that.
Proud of you, David. You did awesome, man.
I think the biggest thing was Ashton and LS only getting 1 squat each. Yeah. That really opened up the door completely, and then from there, We were just chipping away, trying to make lifts. Hanny and I were helping with David, and went slightly conservative on bench. I think he probably had 187.5, but we were just trying to chip away at it and get him in position to where we knew he'd likely be pulling last and be able to put on what he needs. And with how the other guys were struggling, it seemed like we could be in a reasonable spot there. So it came together. It was a lot of fun, kind of jockeying for position there as it came down the stretch with deadlifts and attempt changes and stuff like that. Because we set it up where both David and Ashton were, their initial pulls put them at 8:15 so that they could beat the best morning total. And then we wanted to make sure that we were pulling after Ashton on every attempt. So we put in 350 after Ashton had pulled his 347.5 and struggled with it. And then we put in a higher number than he put in for his third attempt. They put in a couple changes. We waited for them to see what they did. But ultimately, our number was going to be 355.5 because we didn't think Ashton was going to have a second pull. So he tried 353, which if he had made, I think we would have needed 361 or 360.5, something like that, which was around what we had in because we had put in 0.5 above their last change in order to pull last. But we weren't going to attempt that because we knew he was going to miss, and we still had to make a lift in order to move into first. So there was some strategy going on there, and we had to wait till the last minute for them to put in their change. But since their last change was below what we needed to win, we can just wait and see what happens and then put in the change when she missed in order to be 0.5 ahead.
Yep.
So that all happened very fast, but we basically just had to wait until their last change was in so that we knew we could put in what we needed.
It was also a unique situation too with Ashton taking a fourth squat. He got called for depth on a second, which you wouldn't know watching the cast because the commentators were talking about something else. But he came back out after the spotter loaders took his third squat from him, and he came back out and actually crushed a fourth attempt, but then got called for depth. It was.
I think that was the right call, but there's some situations where it's not worth taking a fourth attempt. But with that being 20 kilos above what he had on the board, if he had made that, that would pretty much put things out of reach.
Yeah.
And I mean, same thing with LS. If he had just gotten a second squat in, they took a pretty big jump. They went from 275 to 292.5, which was, I think, ambitious. If they had taken a more reasonable attempt and only went up 12 or 15 and he had gotten that, he would have finished up at like 835, 840. It would have forced David to pull more, would have put more pressure on Ashton. That would have been a completely different game because on bench and deadlift, LS looked really strong. So, all he had to do was really make two squats and it would put a lot more pressure on the other guys.
Right.
Also, big shout out to my boy Jonathan Keiko coming in, just had a beautiful performance and still even had a little bit left in his bench press. I talked to him afterwards. He's like, yeah, I kind of wanted to. There was a wonky handoff, but he kind of had his redemption meet a little bit. He had a rough time at the Arnold and came back and made changes that really brought out a really solid performance. It's crazy impressive. And then in the morning session, I remember watching Chance, Charlie, and that morning session was really competitive too. But Charlie showed up. Charlie did what he needed to do to put up a crazy solid total. And just when you have those guys from the morning session putting pressure on the primetime guys, it just shows how the quality of competition through all the different weight classes has really come up. But the 93s have really, I don't remember what the winning total was even a few years ago, but I guarantee you it wouldn't be anywhere close to these things now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this whole group has made huge improvements. I think going into this, there was maybe just 3 or 4 of these guys that have totaled over 800, and now there's 9 of them, which is just insanity. But yeah, even that morning session was a lot of fun with Charlie and Chance going head to head. We knew that we would have a chance to be ahead of him if we were, say within 15, 20 kilos off a subtotal, and we were. The way it worked out, they were both 6 for 6, and going into deadlifts, we knew that we needed to pull 17 and a half more than Charlie did. And he pulled out a grindy 325. We had a really good 327.5 on our second. Chance blew that up. So I thought the 342.5 was there. Didn't quite lock it out. Just had a little bit of a grip issue. Chance, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've said it like several times. Like the bar, like everybody knows the Titex knurling is a little less aggressive, which is fine. Like I love it and it feels perfect for me and how I pull. I just set up with my pinky finger barely off the knurling a little bit, and since like right after I started pulling it, it was slipping. And so the whole time I was pulling it while I was slipping out from the jump, and I still almost hit it. And I held it at the end. They even gave me the down command and everything. And like the whole time I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this. There's no okay, shit, I might get it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to lock it out. And then they gave me the down command and I dropped it. Which sucked, man. Like, cause the whole thing was similar to how I pictured with Sean, right? Like you keep it close for the subtotal. You kind of just hang in there. You don't have to necessarily, go for broke. And then you pull on whatever you need at the end. I made a mistake though, I think with what we did is, going back now, if I would have, done another 5 kilos on squat, which for sure obviously was there, like watching it back, it was for sure 295 was there. If I would have hit that would have made Charlie pull 5 kilos more later. And that would have been, I don't think he would have gotten it. I don't think he would have gotten 330. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if they would have reached for 330 at the time. So maybe they still would have ended up at 325, but then you would have only needed 337.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
he looked strong to me.
No, wait.
I don't know what you guys saw. I thought 325 looked like it was a better attempt than his previous, but
I think that was about his limit.
That was his limit, yeah. But what I'm saying is like he needed that to pull over me. So he would have needed 5 kilos more to pull over me. Otherwise, it was over.
Well, yeah, we had put in that 327.5 in order to be ahead after seconds. And we had talked about that ahead of time that, based on where we were, instead of the planned jump to 325, we were going to jump to 327.5 if it was looking good so that you would be in first after seconds. And then he would still have to make a third in order to pull ahead.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So yeah, I think we could have been more aggressive on your squat number, but I understand how you were feeling at the time and why you wanted to make that smaller jump. And some of that was just getting past the previous meet where you had some trouble on squat, both with depth and just an outright strength miss. And, both of these attempts were above that and worked out much better. And we know that there's going to be a lot more there in the future. So it's just something to build on. But I can't be mad at how that day went. I mean, that session was a ton of fun. You guys pushed each other really well, and it came down to the last pull. We knew that it was a reasonable attempt and something that was in the cards, gave you a shot at it. Didn't work out, but I mean, I can't be mad at how that one went out.
Yeah. So that was fun, man. That whole flight had a good group. George Rosado and Austin Baraki and everybody, man. It was a good matchup, and with Charlie, and I know the next one will be even better and more exciting. So yeah, that was the 93s. The 93s was still really cool to watch. I think the one that people weren't really anticipating doing that great was Daniel Libre, and he squatted 656 and opened with 716 on deadlift. Like only got his opener. I think maybe if he cleans up the lockouts on his deadlift, like similar to Wilson, where you just hold those lockouts at the top. Like he could be one of those right there, that are like very competitive with everybody.
I got a little bit of I know Daniel. He's a Washington native and crazy strong. I met him at regionals, and he runs Northwest. One of the teams that brought a lot of Washington lifters out there is his gym, and just absolutely strong lifter. His total would have been a lot. He took a big aggressive jump on his third deadlift. Like he missed his second on balance, and then still almost pulled 350. So, like very close. And it's just he's gonna. That was like his second really big meet, and he was coming off of. He didn't make a big deal about this, but he was coming off it was an injury or an illness that like took him out of lifting for a few weeks. So he's going to put up some really big numbers in the future.
I mean, the thing with him is, like, I was watching his stuff, and this is me saying it objectively, like, you know, he's crazy strong. I met him. He's a super nice guy. You know, what I saw on his deadlifts, like, you know, just similar, where it looks so strong and it looks so powerful, but when you don't lock out, you don't hold those in training, and you don't, like, control it and balance it and then wait for the down command, it could be close forever.
Mm-hmm.
It could be always close forever and never there. And that's what it seemed like. And, you know, his 716 was good because it's like, you know, a very easy weight that he could do, you know, but the strength wise is different, man. Like, you holding those lockouts, that's a whole different thing. Like, that's for sure is a big, very difficult challenge when you're pulling over 750, you know?
Yeah. I think he's gonna, I guess my thought is that he's gonna clean that up. Like, he's a smart guy, and he's gonna, I don't think he's going to let that, you know, he's not going to let that be a thing that persists. I think he'll focus in on it. So
I hope so. Good. Okay. So 105s, right? This was Ben Rice, man. Ben Rice.
This was Eli. This was Eli Burks. Eli had the absolute meat that he needed to have. He was a gentleman about it. Like, straight up, we were really aggressive with my stuff, but I do not want to at all diminish or dismiss the work of Eli, Garrett, and Michael. They deserved those spots. They put together a much better performance on the day than I did, and 100% they deserve all of that credit for putting together those solid days. Super huge congrats to Michael. People kept talking. I heard people saying, like, "Oh, our boy Michael on the," like, I was not overlooking him at all.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely think he's got a crazy future coming up. And I remember seeing, like, then you have Josen Amendola, captain bench press over here, emasculating everybody back there. And we have some strong bench pressers in that flight, myself not included. But holy noodle toast, a 200, like, his last bench press was only 4 kilos under his opening deadlift.
True.
What are this? He's just doing arm squats at that point. I don't understand.
Does he have really short arms?
He just looks like a huge human person.
He's
like,
very jacked.
He's just a big old boy. Seemed like a super stand-up dude. Super gentleman. Just
crazy.
It was just awesome. It was just awesome to be able to share the platform with so many strong guys. And
Joseph's been in that strength range for a while, though, but it's good to see him get some recognition for it. He works with Bill McCarthy. But yeah, he benched 246 kilos, which is like 543 pounds, that's insane, especially at that weight class.
Well, the world record got traded 3 times at Worlds with like 500, 501, 502, and then he's out here like, yeah, hold my beer, guys. I'm just gonna rep this.
Just destroying it by 20 kilos. Yeah.
But
Eli did. Okay, yeah, Eli did really, really good. Kind of what we expected. You know, if he went 3 for 3 on squat, that to me was enough. You know, I thought if he ended with 310 or more, that was enough to put it away. In my objective, like, side view, you know, me looking on, I felt like, okay, if he does that, it's going to be tough for even Ben Rice or, you know, Blevins or anybody to really hang on, just because his bench is pretty good, not fantastic, but close to Michael Davis. And then deadlift, he had the strongest deadlift out of the group. You know, that 365 final deadlift for him was more of like, okay, this just seals it up. I don't think that was a limit lift for him at all. It hit his grip, and kind of just holding, you know, any kind of huge weight is the main issue for him. And yeah, that 365 was pretty easy, and that just kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah, Eli's third pull was very convincing. He had some room left on there if needed. And Garrett would have needed a third squat to really try to push Eli to his limit. But even with a conservative jump, that third squat wasn't there for Garrett. And then if we talk about Ben's numbers, if his misses were makes, it still would have been just under that 870 that Eli and Garrett ended up at. So, you know, even if we had nailed the attempts with limit lifts, it wouldn't have been what was needed in order to be in that first or second position. So
Yeah.
You know,
I went to dinner with him afterwards, and we were talking about, kind of the situation that was going. We thought that, that Eli had the better, just by making those attempts, being more conservative. At least in my mind, I thought that he and Garrett were both going to push the squat more, which is why I was kind of on board more with the aggressive attempt selection in general to just stay relevant. I think even though you don't see as many misses in this one, I do think that I was watching back, seeing people who I think everyone's squats were a little bit limited by the time frame and the turnover of that. I think that, shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I can definitely speak from experience that my deadlift was affected by missing those two. It wasn't just that I missed a squat. It was that I missed those two, and the way that I missed them, like, I was pretty torched. My lower back was pretty just tired going into the third. And I don't think I've ever gotten that close to locking out a deadlift and not been able to lock out the deadlift. Like, I literally, I made a promise with myself that I wasn't going to let go unless I blacked out or I got a down command. And I got to the top of it. I'm like, I'm just going to hold this here until it gives me the down command. I don't think I can move anymore, but I'm not going to pass out. My thumbs felt fine. I didn't feel at risk of tearing. I didn't mind the knurling on those bars even a little bit. So shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'll be in better shape next time so that I don't have any excuses to give. But I don't want to take anything away from the guys who put together solid performances on the day. It was a blast competing with them, and it was, for as poorly as I executed, I was really excited to share the platform with those guys. And next year we have Bryce back too, and it's gonna be a fun time.
Chicago for sure.
I think it was a PR for how long you've held 800 in your hands.
I could have, well, if it was a deadlift bar, but it was so, oh man, I watched it on stream the next day and was talking about like what I was feeling. And it's like, why don't you just a little bit of a glute squeeze, just a little bit, just get there. Just why not a little bit more?
Yeah. So that was the 105s, the 120s.
My boy Matt Sommer proving that you do not need to bench press to win a national meet.
He had some very, very impressive squats and deadlift. Seemingly working on his bench. He benched 160, which is pretty good for him, and looked like he had some room on it. So, if he does Worlds next year and continues working on that, he's gonna be very competitive in that class.
Yeah, he's been chasing that. I think he was 8 pounds underneath the world record for his squat too.
Yeah,
and he's just been really consistent for the last. I remember I met Matt a few years before he started competing USAPL, and he's always been like a really crazy, squatter. And then his deadlift started to really progress, and now his bench is starting to come along too. But like he's my spirit animal for.
It's crazy to think someone in the 120s can bench 352 and still win.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah. It gives me hope. Man. It gives me hope.
Yeah. When you're that strong of a squatter and you put knee sleeves on, and then you can do like 10 kilos more, it might be enough to seal it, man. Like, Anthony Harris only benched 195, so it wasn't the end of the world if you only got like 160, 165. But yeah, I mean, having such a crazy squat, such a crazy deadlift, you can do basically whatever, man. Like, that's, his squat and deadlift alone is what, 700 kilos, 720, something like that.
Yeah. Supposedly Tony Harris doesn't bench in training either. Like,
that's what I heard too.
I've heard he'll just do some dumbbell bench occasionally, but he doesn't like to train bench press. So something about those 120 guys, maybe it's just because they're handling just massive weights on squat and deadlifts. But
Eric, I think it's time for us to go 120. I've been meaning to talk to you about.
Wow. All right, let's do it.
I just need anything to get rid of the desire to bench press. I'm on board with. No, but yeah, they had top three just put together the most lifts. It looked like on the day. My boy Nathan Alexander representing that Bulgarian training style where like it looked like a kind of a regular training day for him. His lifts are like he does this basically every week, and then just wasn't able to quite put it together on the day. He'll do some stuff in the future if he when he's on, and when he's off, it's a bit of a struggle bus. But then also shout out to Ryan Stills, just barely missing out on on that 804 or that 800-pound pull, but a super nice guy, probably the most epic beard at the entire event, and props to him too. So go ahead.
Yeah, Ryan came in strong and got a 700 squat. Missed the 800 pull to move up in placing, but Nathan Alexander, like you said, opened with 800 on deadlift, and it sounded like he was just out of gas after some misses on squat and bench, but he was trying to pull for third with his last pull at 372.5, just like 822. But I mean, that's a heavy opener. I don't know where
like he just does it weekly. Like he trains Bulgarian. He basically goes in and does whatever his max is on the day.
Yeah,
like multiple times a week.
Might not be ideal when you need to make 3 pulls in that game. But I get it.
120 pluses. Ray Williams.
Ray was
Jason
way off. Ray was way off, but still way ahead.
Yeah.
He won by 155 kilos or something like that.
It was 1,072.5 to 917.
Yeah.
So
it was very close between Jason Mike and Joseph Pena, which we kind of expected going in. Pena tried to get a squat over 900 on the board and didn't quite get it. Jason missed his third squat too, which left it very close, where Jason had to pull for the win on his third pull and was able to get it with 332.5 or 733. But yeah, that was a interesting one. It was interesting to see Ray be that far off his best on squat, where he struggled with a 970-ish opener. He lost his balance on it. The second attempt with 5 kilos more because it was misloaded. That looked rough too, so they scratched his third. And just pretty far off from what he's capable of. So I don't know if that was just because he traveled there the night before. But he was able to put up some decent numbers on bench. Deadlift, they took a shot at 400, but I didn't think that was going to be there. But, being in his position, he can take those shots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jason didn't have a great meet on bench, which that's his, money lift, obviously. Like, he's benched 280, I think, and only getting 260. Like, if he would have gotten 270, 270, 272, that would have been enough to lock in, to not even have it close,
Right. Jason benched 281 at Worlds for the record, and was only able to get 260, which was his opener here.
Yeah, he's been dealing with some personal stuff. His son just got finished with chemotherapy, so his training has not been his number one focus. So he's been working on a few things and coming back from that. But
good for him at least to get second to Ray Williams. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think last year, I was helping to handle him last year, and this national, even though he didn't have the most, he didn't put together all the best attempts that I think he's capable of. This was a much better showing at nationals for him. He was much more consistent, where last year he was not as consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that rounds up the whole meet. We talked about almost everything. Is there anything that we're looking forward to in Chicago? Besides the matchups, besides Ben Rice versus Bryce Lewis?
I think it's going to be cool to have it in a major city. I know a lot of people complained about the location this year with it being in the Northwest and not a major airport. So we could see just a huge amount of people there next year. Even though this was the largest national so far this year, we had, I think, around 1,200 lifters. if it's in Chicago next year with easier access from some of the Northeast people and just a easier airport to get to for most people, we could just see. I don't even know. My guess would be over 1,500 lifters if they don't change the qualifying totals, which I don't think they will at this point.
Isn't it up for vote right now? Like the NGB is where they'll vote for it, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if they're going to put that into effect last minute, because I think people would be kind of upset about that.
It'd probably be for the next period of time where people could qualify, right? Because if someone already got their qualifying total and wants that to happen, you'd have an uproar. Plus, they want to make money. I mean,
that's what I mean. The qualifying totals for next year's nationals are in effect from January of this year all the way until the end of qualifying for next year, which is like September 2019. So January 2018 all the way through September 2019 is the qualifying range for next year. And I would be surprised if they change the totals in between that period. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I really just hope they do it 5 days, man. 4 days is just
That's
and if they're gonna do prime time again, which I think they will, and I think they should. Actually, I don't care. They can get rid of prime time, but do it prime time. Don't split 2 platforms and have the warm up room be so hectic with 5 classes trying to warm up together. It's
yes.
Even with the like they had a great warm up area, they had a great competition venue area. I think that people were crapping on the Pacific Northwest and crapping on Spokane. It's a bigger city, I think, than people realize. It wasn't some podunk town. It was like it is a metropolitan area. There are lots of hotels and lots of things. It's just a smaller airport. It doesn't get as much traffic as like Seattle would. But trust me, all y'all would have preferred this to Seattle. Seattle is a grimy place. From someone who lives right next to Seattle, I think I would prefer the Spokane, like the vibe of the city. It's just a prettier place.
It seemed really nice. I didn't get to see the city at all. I was pretty much at the venue the whole time, but I know a lot of people went down to the river and that area, and it seemed really nice. And the venue itself was great. I think they did a really nice job with that. I didn't like how the lifting and the warm-ups were separated by floor, where your warm-ups were downstairs, but sometimes there's not much you can do about that. And I think they still did the best they could with it, because they had the screens downstairs where you could see the live stream and you could see where the flights were. So Sunday was a mess with the overlapping flights and 5 different weight classes for prime time. But outside of that, I think it was ran extremely well. And I was happy with it.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the participation medals?
I didn't think much of it. I don't care about
it. So I made a post, right, about individual medals for the open divisions, and that it wouldn't cost that much. It doesn't really affect anything. It doesn't change anything. It's just kind of an extra incentive for people that are like a specialist with one lift, or that are only really competitive for 1 or 2 things. For those people, like, I felt like something like that, where we are fighting for medals on squat, bench, or deadlift, it gives it a different dynamic that I think is definitely something that wouldn't cost anything. So like, they gave participation medals to literally every person, no matter what. And I was getting people that were saying like, no, that's not going to work. You don't know how much these meets cost to run. You don't know how much these kinds of things are going to cost people. Medals are not cheap. And it's like, trust me, like, I'm not saying that the USAPL is money hungry for every little detail thing. I was trying to say, like, this would be an easy thing that they could do that really gives some like boost to people that are right outside of the mix.
Yeah, I think it would be a cool thing to include. And like we were talking about outside of this the other day, where some of these weight classes are much deeper and more competitive than what you even see at Worlds. We were talking about 93 as an example, with 9 guys this year totaling 800 or more. There was only 2 that did that at Worlds this year, which was LS and I think Coimbra from Brazil.
And Gustav in the juniors.
Right, but I mean, I'm just talking about in the open class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's other great lifters scattered around, but I mean, this is such a deep field that being the top 3 in one discipline is pretty prestigious at Raw Nationals. So I think that would be something that's worth looking into, at least.
I agree, for sure. I mean, the people that were giving me backlash to it was like, I don't know if that's a real reason, like, not to do it. And they were saying, like, because it's expensive. And I was like, I don't think it costs that much.
No, and they certainly made a fair share of money on this one,
Yeah.
especially considering the increase in the registration fees. But they did a nice job of putting that money back into it with signage and banners and making it look like a very professional event. So I was happy about that. And the warm up room all had combos and kilo plates,
Mhm.
and
That was great.
yeah, I think they really did a nice job overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really biased in supporting that since my total's so like imbalanced that I would be highly incentivized to just like, all right, forget the bench, just go for a squat and a deadlift. I'd get 2 medals instead of your 1 total. Blah.
Yeah, but think about it like this: like in the '83s, Vernon and UU trying to, like, battle.
No, I understand. I understand it. I think that it. I would say in the open class, I could see that done. I think it would be probably a little wonky to try to see that through all the different age groups because it's not just juniors,
just
it's
open,
like
just open for
juniors
sure.
and masters and stuff. But I could see that being in the open. It can give some people who, like you may not have a chance really to go to an IPF Worlds to have a crack at that record. He might be like NAPF or something, but just getting the opportunity to like exhibit your special discipline if it's something that you really excel at, or like Amendola with his freaking scary bench press. Like I wouldn't be mad at him receiving a medal for like, I don't understand you mutant of a person, but you're a sweet boy, so here you go, take this and put it around your neck and smile a lot. I'd be fine with that.
So I think too, like, there are a lot of people that had complaints about certain things that I felt like weren't justified. I feel like this meet was very well ran, very better than expected. I wasn't expecting that much because, it is a crazy, huge meet. And, for them to do it in a smaller city with, what seemed like they weren't 100% prepared, how they break down the days, what they did with the flights, it still ran really well. And I was very happy. I think probably just, as good as 2016, maybe pretty damn close, but I was like, man, this is really good. For anybody that was complaining or sat out for this meet, I'm like, I don't know what you're complaining about. It was a great one. And, I feel like people that buy into that social media, like, stigma about USAPL and stuff, it's like, don't listen to it, man. Like, it's a great meet. There's a reason why there's 1,200 people signed up. There's a reason why all these people are flying out here for just this one meet,
Definitely.
Yeah. I think something too. A lot of the complaints that were coming through are like the opposite. In an attempt to make some improvements that people have complained about in the past. We want it to be more professional. We want to be taken more seriously. We want these things done. And so when they do stuff like you need a media pass to have professional camera equipment in the venue or in the warm-up room, with your own camera crew without a media pass, that's not an overreach. That is an attempt to improve the level of seriousness that the sport has taken. Some of the other things, the increased cost of the, it wasn't just a cash grab for money on this. They're actually paying the spotters and loaders. They're actually offering, payment for what's normally complete volunteer jobs, and recognizing that these meets do not happen if you don't have people who commit their entire week to not competing, but to running the platforms. And they were, as much as it was a little bit frustrating seeing them kind of usher off Eli after winning, they were working very hard at a very singular focus of, we are going to do our job very seriously. And like, I have love for my spotters. Really, it's really nice knowing that you have people that are qualified and capable. Where a few years ago they had the IPF Worlds and there was an actual like montage of people that had no business spotting those lifts, and so they're like making an effort to make sure that it's legit now. And so a lot of the complaints about like, oh, it's a smaller, like, they won the bid, people voted on it, They're trying to make it more professional. They're implementing things to help the sport be taken more seriously. And so if you have criticisms or like issues with that, that's totally fine, but understand where they're coming from, and understand that if you're giving a critique that is the opposite of what your previous critique is, that we want it to be more serious, we want it to be higher production value, we want all these things. It's like when they start trying to make choices that are in line with that direction, then accept that that's what they're trying to do. And it's not every idea is going to work perfectly, but they are trying with the good intentions for the sport in mind. Like I said, I have a lot of love for these meet directors. They're genuinely good people. They're not trying to screw anybody. They love the sport. They want the sport to be better. And that's why a lot of these decisions were made. And so I just encourage anybody on social media who was grumpy about it to give them a little bit of the benefit of a doubt and a little bit of grace, that they're not money hungry zealots who are trying to do some crazy thing. They're in powerlifting, right? Like, this is not, you don't go into powerlifting to try to become rich.
They see something that's negative or that they don't really like, and they immediately jump to the negative, malicious intent, instead of saying, maybe there's something that I don't understand, maybe I need to figure it out, and then going from there,
Yeah, I think they did a nice job with kickbacks and incentives for all the volunteers too. I mean, they were giving out food vouchers and hotel stays, and there was a lounge for the referees, and just a lot of nice amenities for the people that were giving their time for the sport.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's all I have. Is there anything either of you wanted to say? Any mentions? Anything?
I mean, thanks to everybody who showed up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, we talk about the top finishers and we talk about like the big matchups, but there's a lot of people who are putting an entire year of work and effort into bringing their best in these competitions. And if you're one of those lifters who showed up and maybe wasn't in the mix of the primetime flights, or you're in the day, the day sessions, or, you're not necessarily trying to place in a top percentile, you're just trying to beat yourself. Like, that's what the sport's based off of. That's what the sport is made of. And the sport doesn't work if the only people who show up are the top, 2 or 3 lifters. Like, so as much as it's fun to talk about those, like, I got love for anybody who showed up on the day and prepared. Like, I understand how much work it is to do that, and we all do. And so thank you to anybody who showed up and did their thing and participated and made this sport as awesome as it is.
Yeah. Eric, anything?
No, I can't say it better than that.
There you go. All right. That's going to be it for us. And hopefully we'll do another one of these, maybe previewing the Arnold or something else. So that's it. See ya. Adios.